And so that's 19% experience anxiety. Anxiety can be labeled as social anxiety. People maybe have some phobias, generalized anxiety, panic attacks. And so anxiety can be labeled in many different ways. But the reality is it can be very debilitating and it can be very isolating, and some people just don't know how to manage it. But I always like to say we all experience it. All clinicians, myself, and many other people will say that we all can experience anxiety. We all can experience depression. When it becomes more of a concern or something where you might need to seek, a mental health professional, is when it starts impacting your daily lives. When you start feeling like you can't get out of bed, or you feel like I can't even focus on my eating, or my mind is just kind of like impacting me. I feel like it's 50 million commercials going at once, or maybe I'm just like having these hot and cold flashes. These are signs that maybe something is not right. And so I will say we do experience it, but the reality is that sometimes we may need to get a further assessment, because I think a lot of people like to go on the internet, WMD, WebMD, and they will say, yes, okay, yep, I have that. Yep, yep, I have anxiety, and they will claim it. And I'm always like, wait, we need to slow down and figure out, is that really accurate? I will acknowledge the next piece is that 21 million individuals have been diagnosed with a major depressive disorder, and that is also 8% of the population. These are numbers since 2021. It could probably be totally different since the last year we've been going through a pandemic, and so a lot of people are now having to return to work. People are now having to deal with things that they may not have. Relationships have changed, and so the concern is that people are starting to be impacted. But I think what's important is that I'm really wanting to encourage people to start understanding and embracing the anxiety, embracing depression. It's almost like if you want to maybe for a moment think of being in the ocean. Like, you ever seen yourself, maybe not, because you don't have a mirror, right? We're not looking at ourselves, but just imagining ourselves in an ocean. We're moving back and forth. If we try to go against the ocean, sometimes we can get caught under tow, right? Or we can start feeling like something's not right, or we get drawn away. But we have to start going with it to eventually get where we need to, which is maybe back to the beach. It's the same thing in regards to how I'm wanting you to think about anxiety or depression. We have to start understanding and going with what we're feeling, because anxiety is a very common occurrence, and it's actually a good thing. How many people think anxiety is good? Ooh, that reaction! What's the hesitation?
Me?
Yes, because you were about to, and they're like, ooh, I don't know, what should I say?
What's the hesitation when saying it's a good thing?
Sure.
Okay.
You could have had a different hesitation, but yes, we'll go with that. And if you don't want to be transparent, I totally get it, because you're in a place where like, ooh, I don't know.
I'm just trying to
Right.
Just on her.
I don't know, because I first thought like with stress. I thought, well, stress could be good because it gets you to do something.
Right.
So I just was relating it to that. But I'm like, yeah, anxiety, maybe. I don't know, because it gets you to do, I don't know, sort through
does.
something. I don't know.
And I want to validate you had the answer.
Oh, okay.
You did. There's really no wrong answer. I think the reality is that you're able to acknowledge, like, this is my experience, or this is what I know. And that is actually an example of what we are experiencing in the world. We say, well, this person, they're not going to understand me, so I'm not going to say it out there. Or maybe I just don't know how to talk about it. And so we are hesitant to say it. But we're hesitant to acknowledge, like, this is what's going on. And I will say, I'll be very transparent. Over COVID, I was very stressed. I was like, I had to start coming to see Dr. Richard, because I was like, I'm like not sleeping well. My mind was kind of racing. What is going on? I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, this is not right. And I'm a mental health clinician. What is happening? This is totally different. But it was acknowledgement that something's not right. Something needs to change. But the reality is we're reacting to our environments. And I think that's the piece that we're not always realizing, is that our environment sometimes can impact how we interact. But you're right. We get anxious because we're maybe stressed out. What are major things that kind of cause us to feel stressed? Let's name a few. Wow, the validation, work is a major thing, absolutely. And so if you're like, I don't like my job, or my boss is so annoying, or I don't make enough, or I need to figure out like what's my passion, we can get really stressed out, and so then that impacts us. But going back to the original thing about anxiety is and can be a good thing, but I do understand it can be very uncomfortable. It can be something to where you're like, I don't want to experience this anymore. But the one element about why it can be is because it does alert our body to say something's in danger or something's happening, and so then it helps us react. And so we have to respond. And so we do that, but if we do that on a constant basis, our body is like, okay, I need a breather, I don't know what's happening. And so it's doing this repetition all the time that eventually it's doing it so much that you're like, I'm trying to sleep. I'm just trying to be able to eat, or I'm just trying to be able to just be. And that's what's happening in some occasions. And I'm saying some because, again, everybody's situation is different. But it's happening because we're being impacted and we're starting to feel our environment, and it's not allowing us to just function like we normally do. So if we have this awareness that work, you know, over here, it's like, ooh, it's like major work over here. We have to say, can I change that? Well, a lot of times we really can't. But is it always about work, or can it be something else that we have to be thinking about? Well, the answer is we don't really know. And so that's why it gets back to thinking, okay, what are some things that show up when we're anxious? So I had talked about a few that we're starting to feel stressed out. It starts impacting us, and so we're reacting to our environment. So we're starting to have like alarms go off, we're starting to react. And then the element is that we just don't know how to do it. So some symptoms, this is not a full gamut, but some symptoms can be what? Shortness of breath. Some people have talked about chest pain, their tightness in their chest, hot and cold flashes. Sometimes people will say they're irritable. Some people will have headaches. Some people, again, can't sleep. And the interesting thing is that anxiety and depression sometimes can mirror each other too. But the reality is we don't really know exactly what can be going on until we actually talk to somebody. I keep reiterating that because, again, we try to diagnose ourselves on the internet and we think that's what it is. In reality, that may not be the case. So if we start understanding ourselves, that I know, because I do it. I can feel it in my shoulders start clenching, and I'm like, oh, I need somebody to massage my shoulders, because it just automatically just does it. And I'm like, but that's a sign for me to say, okay, maybe I need to readjust or I need to relax. Sometimes people have other ways to kind of show some symptoms, but we have to start having some awareness. So I wanted to start off by saying, okay, anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing, but we have to realize it is something that does help us. But if it starts impacting us more than often, that's when we have to look at things differently. So I want to kind of give validation and share that it's okay to be in this moment. It's also okay to say, this is what's happening. Because we do want to start embracing and understanding, this is my truth. And I really, in my practice, encourage people to say what you're feeling. But what happens? We're not in environments where people allow us to say what we're feeling, right? People are, I don't know if you've been in a place where it's in your phone, and people are talking, and you're like, oh my gosh, can you give me eye contact? People don't know how to give eye contact. Or people are just like, I gotta go. I'm gonna leave right now. I can't talk right now, so I'm gonna leave you alone. And so people are so busy. We are constantly inundated with so much stuff that it's hard for us to stop. But if we can pay attention to certain signs, maybe we can have some of that understanding. So what do we do once we understand this is what's happening when we're feeling anxious? What do you think? What are some ways that you've heard? Because you guys are really brilliant. I know you have it. You have all the information. What are some things that you know of that you have heard can be ways to kind of manage? Exercise. Why exercise? Why is exercise such a great thing?
I think it just allows your body to just free from the stress or anxiety or thoughts, or if your body moves.
Yes.
It seems like that's a good outlet.
It is. It's an absolutely great outlet. And it's one of those pieces where I was talking about earlier about how our body reacts. So our sympathetic system. I'm gonna get a little technical. Dr. Rich is gonna know better than I can say it, but he'll even spell exactly like that. Like here and here. But the, sympathetic system is how your body reacts and responds. It's like, I'm gonna do what you need me to do to get you across that street because I know you're freaking out right now. We're gonna go. And so when your body has that understanding, it will do what it needs to. But then if the sympathetic system, which is the other side of the house that says, okay, you did that, you got across the street, but now I need you to relax. I need you to pause, I need you to breathe. But if that is not working, it doesn't know how to comfort you and relax. And so that's why some people will maybe what? They'll eat something to make them feel better. They may call somebody. They may, get some type of libation to make them feel good. Whatever. Minus chocolate. That's my thing. Whew, gives those like serotonin chemicals, wonderful. But that's where the exercising can come in. You're helping those systems work more efficiently. Exercise helps calm and relax it, because I think sometimes people feel like exercising is, it's just so much work. You don't have to do a lot of exercise. It can be like 15 minutes. All you're doing is trying to increase that heart rate and trying to relax it so that you can be more able to kind of respond. And so once you do some of the exercising, maybe you can teach it to relax. I will acknowledge that stretching is a form of exercising. So if you're not someone who likes to do all that extraneous, oh my gosh, I can't do the treadmill, I can't do this, go stretch, go and just kind of be connected. Because another piece, and I'm wondering if somebody else thinks of it, what are some other ways? So we said exercising, what's another way we can kind of manage feeling anxious?
Sometimes for me, I slow down and create or meditate, something like that. But create, just doodle or read or just let something move through me instead of me being in charge.
She just said it right at the end. Instead of me being in charge. Because just like I was acknowledging that we're always on, we have to learn how to just shut down. And I think sometimes we feel like we have to be in charge. We have to be doing all this stuff because who's saying it? Do we really know who's saying it? A lot of times it could be society. Maybe you're seeing it on Facebook. I hope to acknowledge social media is probably the most impactful way that impacts how we kind of deal with stuff, because we're seeing so much. Like, oh wow, look at this person feels happy. This person is great. Look at their job. And so then you start wondering, why am I not doing enough? Or I need to be doing this. And then it's like, well, who is me? And that's when we may not be anxious. We start feeling a little bit depressed. And that's why sometimes they can go hand in hand. But breathing is a way to help ground us. Breathing is a natural thing, and I'm always good at disclosing things. I don't swim, but my husband was like, let's go swimming. I went swimming, and I do exercise all the time. I do high intensity exercise and everything. We went in the pool. I tried to swim across the lap. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. And it just reminded me, I was like, I don't breathe enough. I don't use, the diaphragm to really breathe. I'm always probably doing those short breaths, and it's not enough. We have to do those deep inhale and exhale to allow our system to say, I'm okay. I'm here. This is good. And I think that's sometimes the message that we don't hear enough. And that's why sometimes anxiety becomes an element, because we start hearing those thoughts. They're saying, you're not enough. You should be doing more. What's happening? We need to change this. And our thoughts, and I call them automatic negative thoughts. You can have that if you wish. But those are ants. Ants crawl all over us all the time.
Wow.
And those ants are so annoying sometimes. But we have to learn how to shoo them off and brush them off every once in a while. But those are things that come up and creep up because we have maybe passion. Maybe we have this piece about we want to feel secure, but yet feel like I'm not confident. Or maybe we need to worry about, oh my gosh, what am I wearing? And sometimes a proponent, and I'm a big person, like my weight. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could feel this way. But that's society. That is a thing that's coming in my head because of other elements. But if we don't have a person to redirect those wiring, we can start believing these things. And that's the piece that I'm wanting to kind of combine, saying we have to have understanding, we have to have awareness, and we also have to have that support to kind of give us some directives so we can look at things and see things differently. So what are some other pieces? We got breathing, we got exercising. What's some other good ways? I can see it, it's like right there, right behind me. She's thinking, she's like, I know it.
Like do something mindless, like go out and mow the lawn, or go out, or cook something that you didn't, something that doesn't take a lot of thought and time.
Do something you love.
Yeah.
Feel like, I don't know if you've ever walked outside barefooted on the grass. We don't do that. We forget how to feel grounded. We forget how to be connected, and so we're always disconnected. And so sometimes it's helpful to just start going out and making sure that we're connecting ourselves and saying, I'm here. Stop and smell the roses so that we can make sure we can be connected. So I know I totally went off. I know I didn't need the cards, but I was like, I just need to make sure I'm saying stuff or whatever. I think the other piece I want to kind of acknowledge and share is just about the element in regards to depression that, many people will say, I can't, versus how can I? And so it's all about the language and how we do things a little bit differently. And so if we can find ways such as exercising, breathing, getting connected, finding some ways to just not do anything and be mindless and just pause, we can start being able to reduce some of those stress. And so I'm trying to be mindful of time. So I said 30 minutes and wow, look at that, I'm like literally close. And I think this is great because I'm curious to see how well you guys are managing your stress. So, I have a worksheet which is called the life, there's a few in there. Nope, there's a few in there. I will give you one, nope, I got one too. And I forgot pens.
Oh, we've got pens.
So, this is not something that's like an exact science. Anybody need a pen?
I've got some.
We
probably
only
should've
have
had, like,
expensive ones, so.
We have expensive ones here. And I apologize, it did not have my clipboard.
Do we need more?
So
Yeah.
I think
Everybody
I
have?
think we got the pens.
Okay, we have more, okay.
So this is not something to worry, I want you to stress over. But the instructions are very clear. 12 to 24 months. I would even just say 12 months. In the last 12 months, check off any of these that resonate with you. Did you have a separation from a partner? Did you have an injury? Was there any retirement? Change in financial status? Just check whichever ones that might resonate with you. And then I will tell you next. Oh, I bring these things because I never do them. I want to see the demonstration. I'm so excited.